How's it, sticklers? You know, it's the Joystick Show where your three favorite brothers from Hawaii have gathered here to talk story about things we've read, watched, or played. Shakas and mahalos for sticking around. If you fancy what you hear, please like and subscribe on the platform you frequent. I'm your co-host Drake. That's Scott.
How's it?
And as you know, our third brother, Tom Bomb, just had surgery this past Monday, and he's currently in recovery. So we wish him all the best, and he'll be back soon. So just hold your horses. Scott, we've got some news, trailers, and reviews. Let me give you the index for this evening. Disney's a lot of news, or in the news a lot for us today, with their collaboration with Epic Games. We've also got a few things on some movies that I think you're really going to like that are Disney orientated. We can talk a little bit about a new Demon Slayer movie coming out in February. We'll get into the renewal of Percy Jackson. We'll talk about the late, great Carl Weathers. We'll put a little bit of thoughts on the Grammys that just took place, and we'll just see what our predictions for the Super Bowl is for Super Bowl Sunday. And for our trailers, we have the very interesting looking Netflix show and or movie House of Ninjas. Avatar: The Last Airbender trailer came out as well, and also A Quiet Place Day 1. And then obviously for our reviews, the shows we've been watching, Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon, and Masters of the Air, the latest one, episode 3. So let's just get down to it. Scott, we've just learned that Disney and Epic Games are doing a collab. Epic Games is super huge. I believe they've done things like Fortnite. And I don't know. There's just so much to like assume that they can do. Kind of the sky's the limit, right? Disney, one of the largest entertainment companies in the world, and Epic Games with, one of the most popular games out there. What are your, I guess, expectations of this collaboration, aside from they're going to be making a lot of money?
Yeah, that's for sure. They're gonna make a ton of money. As you know, like Fortnite, their skins, the skins they have access to in that game are like crazy. Like you can basically be anybody shooting anybody in that game now. So I'm assuming more of that, maybe some more rights to their video games, more like likenesses, more characters joining Fortnite and whatnot. Also be interesting if they somehow turn that game into some sort of movie slash show slash something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be cool and like totally possible. I feel like. What do you think?
I mean, 1.5 billion, I believe, was the number that was thrown out there. I mean, obviously Fortnite's super huge. So I mean, they can make a lot of, I think they can make a lot of Disney orientated games, and Disney can start making video games that not only are people going to want, but are going to be backed by a credible production source. Like you said, kind of the sky's the limit. I know Epic Games has done a lot of different games, and with the Disney IP, I mean, sky's the limit, really. I think it's just it makes sense on a bunch of different levels business wise. And imagine, you can create a what was that most popular Disney game that had the key that you had to fight with?
Oh, Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts. So I imagine like a Kingdom Hearts with forever updating skins and content that can directly correlate to what Disney is doing in Disney Plus, and then maybe having a collaboration between the streaming content and the gaming content, and maybe create a new platform that we can be entertained by. It sounds like anything can happen in that situation.
Yeah.
God damn. Well, sticking with Disney, there was a large kind of Q1 earnings call that kind of anticipated a lot of things and revealed some things to us today, including sequels from Toy Story, Frozen, Zootopia, as well as The Mandalorian and Grogu movie that Favreau is going to be kind of getting into. But the fact of the matter is, Toy Story 5, I believe, or 6, or what number are we on now? Who knows?
5, it looks like.
5. Frozen 3. Both of those will be coming in 2026. And Zootopia 2 will be coming in, I think, 2025.
Yeah.
And something else, Moana 2 is coming out since its 2016 release. So we're going to get another Moana. And also, I believe they're expecting Mandalorian and Grogu to come out around 2026 as well. But what are you excited for? What do you think is going to be the most biggest hit, I think, out of all of those movies? And I guess what are your expectations? Because these are kind of killer movies. We've been growing up with these movies, so I assume we're going to have quite a large expectation of these moving forward.
Yeah, for sure. These are good questions. I think the one that might hit the biggest, probably Frozen 3. I know
Mm,
they have diehard fans. Um, that'll probably make the most money. Not the one I'm the most interested in, though. I love Toy Story. So
yep.
Toy Story 5 sounds intriguing. I think they could just keep making Toy Stories like they do the Fast and the Furious, and I'll be on board and keep watching
Yeah,
them, baby.
for
Um,
sure.
yeah, and then
Family.
Yeah, family, yeah, literally. Andy, they're
You've
gonna put him
got
in
a
the movie. He's driving
family
like
in me.
yeah, exactly. And then Zootopia 2, that's exciting. I really like the first Zootopia. I thought they did a
Mm,
really good job of creating a new world.
yep.
Um, and I've rewatched it a bunch of times since it's first come out. Like just like maybe some years have passed, thrown on again. Again like years have passed, thrown on, and it like still holds up. It's
Yeah.
always a good watch. I always
Mm-hmm.
want to know more about what's going on in the city. And I know they have like these shorts on Disney Plus that kind of just do like they're like little 5 minute here or there little scenes with different characters. But yeah, I always felt like Zootopia was a place I'm like, man, they gotta like do more with this. Like, there's so much
Yeah.
more they can do. They're just throwing money away without diving. So I'm glad to see that they're gonna do another one.
Yeah.
And I love the cast, and I love Jason
Mm-hmm.
Bateman.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as he's coming back, I'm on board. Faux
Yeah, yeah.
show. Yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about
I
you?
I agree. I agree. I think Zootopia 2, they did a really good job at kind of bringing a lot of like socio-political things to the forefront without it being super in your face, because
Hmm.
they're all animals, they're all different animals, but you can't
Yeah.
really, they're separated by certain families and genus in like a scientific way, but in terms of them just living in a city, just because they're different, they're all kind of the same thing. And I
Hmm.
think the name in itself, zoo too, we look at it as from the outside looking in on these kind of these creatures and their dynamic together, but you never get to see them all interact, predators and prey together.
Yeah.
I like that aspect of it. There's like a realism to it. There's just a realism to animated things that you can't really do live action. And I think Zootopia is one of those things where you can really get, you can really put in a lot of depth without it getting convoluted with like, how are we going to do this and how are we going to show this? Because it's an animated thing. So
Right. Like
Toy Story
for instance, a
5.
little thing. Oh, sorry, real quick
No, no,
about
no.
that. It was like I like the when Officer Hops is giving out tickets and like you see
Mm,
everything from the giant vehicle that clearly sits giraffes that would be too crazy to create in a real life scenario, and
yeah.
like these little vehicles that like mice are driving around, and then they go into like a gated community that's like a small portion of a park, but it's like
Yeah.
giant to them. Like I love all that stuff. Like yeah, it'd be like way too much to just do that little scene in real life, but that's the beauty of animation. Like I'd love seeing all that. But yeah, sorry. I just want to say that real quick.
Zootopia Zootopia wasn't Pixar, right? It was just a Disney animated situation.
I think it's just Disney animated, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I think Disney's animation has kind of caught up to like the idea of Pixar, right? Because we're on Toy Story
Hmm.
5. Pixar, their last couple movies were good, but they weren't box office breaking like some of the movies they've had in the past. Toy Story 5, I
For
think they're
sure.
trying to rekindle that because it's an OG IP,
Hmm.
and Tim Allen and Tom Hanks working together. That's this was one of the first Pixar movies that murdered. It touches all the things that we want to see, and
Hmm.
so a 5 is going to be really interesting to see kind of where they take that. I'm glad they brought up what they're going to do with Mandalorian and Grogu, because you have so much of that turmoil with uh, you know uh, the Kang Dynasty in the MCU and where that's going to go. Because we also
Yep.
have Captain America Brave New World, Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts, Blade. They're all coming here in 2026 as well.
That's
So
pretty awesome.
to see that, Iger and Disney have a general timeline moving forward, for us to kind of satiate ourselves up until then, there's a lot to look forward to.
Hmm.
Is there, out of the things that we've talked about, whether that's the MCU or some of these Disney animated movies, is there something that you're uh, thinking that's going to bomb? What's the one that's most capable of bombing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's one of those things. I don't want any of these things to bomb, right?
Of
Obviously,
course not. No.
especially the superhero stuff. Like we are huge fans of all things that are superhero slash make believe. All that stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
Imagination. Um,
Imagination.
and I don't know. Like just hearing about the latest things about the Thunderbolts, like my gut saying like, ooh, like I don't know if they're in trouble right now. Like just the changing of the century, and then hearing what's her name? Ao, I say her name wrong, but the lady that was in the bear, she dropped
Oh,
out, and now they got a new lead.
Io
Like
Atterbury, I think.
just
Yeah.
hearing people like dropping out and coming in, like I don't know if they're dropping out because like Marvel has kind of got like this weird track record right now where sometimes just being in the film or listed as like before it, if you were in a Marvel film, that was like guarantee like rocket you to like the top of Hollywood. Now it's if the movie bombs, you bombed, and
Yeah.
people just like start trashing the actors, start trashing everything else, and like if I was a big actor right now and I had the choice to do certain things, like I would kind of be afraid to be in certain properties and like even Marvel. The track record right now is kind of iffy. I do want them to all do well though, but that one I'm hoping is good. Um, and then I know it wasn't on the list, but obviously, was it Madam Web? Is that out yet? That's we called that bomb.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah. I mean, it's not. Is it even worth mentioning?
it's
I
not
don't know.
Marvel. It's like Fox, right? Or what? No,
Yeah,
not
or
even Fox. What
some
is it?
Sony.
Sony.
Is it a Sony?
Sony. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that looks
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. We'll
I'm sorry
just
I even
pan that
mentioned
up
that. It's
to,
not even
yeah.
Marvel.
It's
It's not
Morbius. It's
Disney.
gonna be,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
To me, I think Frozen 3 has the most availability to not do well, only because I think it's very hard to keep a singing heavy feature
Hmm.
not relevant, but like how often can you make a banger of a song? Like, do you remember any songs from Frozen 2?
I don't, but I also maybe watched it one time in theaters. I remember
Mm-hmm.
it being funny, like the certain
Yeah.
like I can remember certain scenes. They did callbacks to like music videos from the 80s and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, and like
Mm-hmm.
that was all great. Um, but
It's not
I can't
Frozen.
say
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
personally remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
it seemed like the songs were less
Yeah.
good. But I mean, hey, maybe they can get someone like Taylor Swift to write all the music, and maybe
Yeah.
they'll
I mean,
bring it in.
Lin-Manuel's probably gonna be in there, so you know how, he just
He's
makes
gonna
hits
bring it
after
home for
hits.
Drake.
He's gonna
Yeah,
bring it home. I mean, I'm totally gonna watch it for Lin-Manuel Miranda. You know that. Um,
big fan, big fan.
Yeah, big fan. I'm a bigger fan of our next thing on the news, which is Demon Slayer. They've got I think a movie slated to come out February 28th. Um, I know they just uh, finish the anime for the latest season, and typically with a lot of like Shonen Jump type situations, they do a animated series and they have a movie, and then they go back to the animated series and they have a movie. Typically, the movie in itself isn't necessarily canon within the manga, but it is to kind of help drive sales and build up a little bit more, or sometimes to just recap the whole anime in one fell
Yeah,
swoop.
so in for Demon Slayer in particular, they normally like the last movie they had was I think the way they did it was the climax of the finale of the previous season. So
Ooh,
like the last three episodes, the big
yeah,
boss fight, seeing it on the big screen, and then the first episode of the new season.
yeah.
What was kind of funny about that was they played it like they were running Crunchyroll in the back. Like they in no way edited it so the credits would be cut out and just jump to the next thing. It was like intro, show, like intro, recap, show, end credits. I swear there was like a next time on, and then it just went. I'm like, there's no way they're gonna have. And then it was just like someone was just playing Crunchyroll. Um, but it was cool. It was cool to see the main fight on the big screen. So I think they're doing something similar.
Ooh.
Um, I'm looking up the the description of it now, and it looks like it is the episode 11 from the Swordman Village arc.
Mm,
So it's the
mm.
conclusion of the force battle between Tanjiro and Upper Four Demon, and
Tanjiro.
so I think basically the ending of that season, and then it's followed up by episode 1 of the Hashira training arc.
Yeah,
So I think they're gonna do something similar. Again, though, it is cool to see these episodes on the big screen,
for
especially
sure.
with the sound and everything. And then a lot of times you're going with your friends, so it's like it's like come over to my house and watch the finale with me. It feels very much like that. You
Mm.
guys can all geek out together and whatnot. So it's a good time. Um, I will see if I'm available to check it out. Works weird, but if I'm available, yeah, maybe I'll go and check this out
Might
for
as
sure.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also too, this February 28th release is interesting because I think it's a leap year this year, right? So we have one more day in February than we typically do.
Yeah. Oh, I'm seeing February 23rd release
Oh, it's
date.
February 23rd on this guy?
Yeah, but I believe it
Interesting.
is a leap year.
Oh, correct about one
So
thing.
boom, boom,
And that
boom. Yeah.
climaxes are usually finales. Um,
Yeah.
for most men, I would assume, unless you are taking hymns. Our sponsor for the evening.
Yeah.
Something that also is staying erect is Percy Jackson. It got renewed for a season 2 already. I know
Ooh,
we didn't talk about the last
yes.
Percy Jackson because Lin-Manuel Miranda was in it, and he was Hermes. But
Yeah.
I think rightfully so. It did pretty well. It deserves a season 2. Does your opinion differ?
Um, no, I mean, I know we had different takes on it. Like, um, I know you understood the show overall. You said it maybe it just wasn't for you, but you still appreciated like the things they were doing in it and whatnot.
For
It's
sure.
just for a
For
younger
sure.
audience. Because I read the books along with my little brother at the time because he was just getting into like reading us like it was like the first series. He's like, oh, it's exciting. He's getting excited about reading. My sister and I started reading with him, and we're like, these books aren't bad. Like
Yeah.
these are pretty cool. So now seeing these books come to life through the show, I felt like they did a really good job.
Mm.
Um, it was solid. I love the actors in it. The CG was great. Um, there were certain parts, of course, where I was like, I don't. Yeah, I know these actors are young, so there were certain
Yeah.
choices they made where I was like, I don't know why you said it with
Weird.
that inflection. That's kind of weird. But overall, I liked the show,
Yeah.
and I was hoping that they would get renewed, and I'm glad they did because
Yeah.
yeah, they're hinting at the second book, and I'm like, oh shit,
Ooh,
yeah, so it's pretty cool.
dang. It's kind of a it's touch and go, I think, with younger actors and then younger actors acting within their age group because
Yeah,
yes, we've both been young. Yes, we've done a lot of dumb things, made mistakes. You regret some stuff, you feel bad about some stuff, you wish you could say sorry, but you can't really because
they're
sorry, I'm
dead
sorry.
now.
They're dead now. And kids and teens doing stupid stuff and making dumb decisions, I think yes, it helps drive the plot, and yes, it does create drama to a degree. But in this day and age where you have so much information and where the generations now, because of that, the newer generations are making different decisions and wouldn't necessarily make those decisions, so it's not so much nostalgia as it is antiquated. Like it'd be like you've watched so many scary movies and when someone's making a super dumb choice, and
Mhm.
because that people in life now have seen a lot of this content, it would be very unusual for them to make that choice unless they've never watched a movie or are just were born in maybe a town of Amish individuals who don't have electricity and TV to be able to make these kinds of decisions. I don't know. I'm not really too sure. I haven't
Mhm.
really met an Amish person before, which I'm open to. So any
Yeah,
Amish people listening,
for sure.
I guess
Yeah,
how
hit
would
drink
they
up.
though if they're not into technology? Yeah.
They'd be breaking rules
So
for sure, but it'd be a
yeah,
good conversation.
yeah.
Yeah. No, but yeah,
um,
there's just little things in that show. Sorry, real quick, I just thought of something like, um, the character Grover. He was kind of like more annoying in the show than he was in the book. Like I
for
liked him in
sure,
the book. In the show, it was just weird character choices where he just felt extra dumb sometimes.
for sure.
There's a part where they go into Hades and they had these pearls that like they throw on the ground like a ninja vanish, and then they would like it's a escape rope out of
Teleport.
Hades,
Yeah.
and he loses it. The dog gets it. Like he gets caught in the dog's mouth, and he comes out. And he's like, "Oh no, the pearl must be in his mouth." I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, I was so like, they had an extra pearl for the mom, and I'm like, "Well, guess you're
Yeah.
staying here, Grover." Like, and
Yeah.
I was like,
Fuck you, dude.
fuck you, dude." Um, but of course he gets it and stuff. But I also thought it'd be funny if at the end of the episode when they all escape Hades, they all end up at that house on the beach
Yeah.
because that's where the pearl takes them. I thought it'd be hilarious if at the end Cerberus just like ends up appearing there because he like hits his mouth on
Because
something and he just gets sent to the real world. That would be fucking funny. But didn't happen.
Something else to deposit on that is, why would you put the tiny pearl in one of the largest pockets, your vest pocket, when you were wearing tight ass jeans, and you could put it in your jean pocket where you know you would feel it against your body? Like, I just like someone like
And, yeah, most of those jeans have a tinier pocket for tiny things.
I know, to put keys and stuff. Like, what are you doing? It's not like he was pelvic thrusting Cerberus's mouth where it was gonna break. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I know. There's definitely certain things you're like, what are you
like,
doing?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not even a kid. He's like a mythical creature. He's a satyr. He's older than them. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. It feels lazy. It just feels lazy sometimes when it's just like so if everything was perfect, right? They did the right things, everything happened, but then there was like a story twist plot that wasn't Deus Ex Machina that changed it. Oh, that's interesting. Right? Like when you watch Law and Orders and when you watch things like Elementary or the Sherlock series, they're interesting because they're doing all the right things, and there's twists and turns because the writing's good, because the acting's good, because the direction is good. Not necessarily because I put it in a pocket and because I was in a dog's mouth, it's out of my pocket. Like, that makes sense, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of forgiving while watching certain shows, and this is one of them where you're like, okay, in this reality,
it's Disney.
They did that.
Yeah.
It's like, I see what you're saying. Like, they you're like, they needed to do that so this other big thing could happen. It could have been done better. I'm sure there was a tighter way to write it,
Sure.
I get it. Whatever.
Yeah.
But overall, it was enjoyable for what they did and how they brought it to life. I'm sure when Avatar comes out, we're gonna have some things we're like, that's dumb.
For sure.
But overall, we're like, I'm sure we're like, they did a good job.
Yeah.
But
as long as it's better than, M. Night Shyamalan's.
Yeah.
Which
2 hours to move fucking stones.
I know, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't good. Something else that wasn't the best was that we had our good friend, and I mean that figuratively, Carl Weathers.
Wait, you cut out a little bit.
Passed away.
This part.
And we're gonna have to pause a bit here because still recording somehow.
Technical difficulties.
We're still back.
It's okay.
Have my Ethernet in here for some reason. It doesn't work, but
it's all good. You were at the part where you said something else that was bad.
Something else that wasn't the best was our good friend, not literally but figuratively, Carl Weathers. Passed away, with a bunch of other individuals who recently passed away, but Carl Weathers being the one that we can relate to the most, just because we've been watching Mandalorian, we watched Rocky, etc., etc. So obviously R.I.P. Carl Weathers. But what do you think they're going to do with Mando now, considering they're going to have the Mandalorian and Grogu movie? Hopefully he already filmed for that, but in terms of like the mashup we're going to hopefully be seeing without him there, how do you think they're going to handle that loss?
I don't know, it's tough. Like, well, the first thing I thought of when I heard he passed, I was thinking about Happy Gilmore.
Oh yeah,
when he passes in that movie and he's up there and he's got his hand back and he's playing the piano. Like, it was a really nice, touching scene. Just so, but I don't know, maybe Jonathan Majors is gonna bring him in. No.
Just a nice Bill Cosby. Get him in there.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, who else? OJ.
Wesley Snipes. Get him in. OJ. Who else?
All the big ones.
all the big names. But
yeah, I don't know how they're gonna. We'll see how whether they write the character out or they bring in someone new.
Yeah.
Who will just play that part and then have a nice like in memory of.
Yeah.
In the episode or something.
I hope they bring back Gina Carano.
It is sad though.
Sorry, separate note. It is sad though. What?
No, no, no. Well, separate thing. I heard that she's trying to sue Disney,
Oh
right?
yeah. Hopefully,
I think Elon Musk is funding her
strange.
suing of Disney.
Wow. All right.
Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. See how that plays
Hmm.
out.
Um.
Maybe she'll be brought back to be Carl Weathers.
Yes, that'd be fantastic. I mean, that'd be interesting. That'd be kind of cool.
Two
That'd be diverse
characters
and inclusive.
for yourself and Carl
Yeah.
Weathers.
But you were
Yeah.
saying sad about Carl Weathers? I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just it's just every time one of these celebrities pass, it reminds us that we're all getting
Yeah.
older. Time is a
Yeah.
moving, doesn't stop for
Yeah.
anybody.
You really need to.
But
You really need to do the things that you want to do. Like Thomas says,
mhm.
fear shouldn't stop you.
Fear is not an
Oh,
excuse.
yeah.
Is what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
gathered.
yeah, that's what he said
He
verbatim,
he
yeah.
swears that's not what he said, but that's what I wrote down.
You wrote it in
Yeah.
pen, so it's permanent. So that's what it is.
Yeah. Can't erase.
Yeah,
that
you
shit.
can't erase it.
Yeah.
Much like how we can't erase Will Smith's slap of Chris Rock. The Grammys had a very similar happenstances with Killer Mike. But since we're on the Grammys,
Yeah.
what were your thoughts on some
Mm.
of the winners or the losers of the Grammys so far? I guess not so far. It's already done. So
Yeah. Shoot, the Grammys is one of those things that kind of came and went. I didn't even realize it happened until I want to say I missed it by a couple of
Yep,
days.
me
It's
too.
awful. But I did see Taylor Swift won album of the
Duh.
year.
I mean,
The comments are
Yeah.
great because there are, of course, a lot of people love the Swiftie,
duh.
right? And a lot of people don't like her. So it's just funny to see like anything from like, yeah, like of course she deserves it to like you're ruining football or something. It's just ridiculous.
I know. Well, speaking of football,
And then Jay-Z. Oh yeah,
speaking
go
of
for
football, real quick, because Super
Yeah.
Bowl Sunday is coming up. Who do you think's gonna win, the Chiefs or the Niners?
it. Chiefs. I don't know.
Chiefs.
My what is it? I don't really watch much
Yep,
football.
neither do I anymore.
Right, so I don't know. I don't really have a space on who I
Sports
choose and
ball.
whatnot. 49ers is my dad's
Yeah, it
team.
is.
I don't even know if he watches football, but as a kid,
Yeah.
I think he enjoyed the 49ers. So much so he got me a 49ers
Yeah.
jacket. That was pretty cool at the time, I got to say. I didn't even watch football, but there was a sweet little initials of SF on my jacket.
Scott
I'm like,
Fernandez.
Scott
Yeah,
Fernandez.
yeah, dude.
Yeah, I was like, this is my jacket. So that was pretty cool. And then growing up, I was just like, yeah, 49ers. Like, I don't even watch football. And then Christine's folks, they love the
I bet
Chiefs.
they do.
Like,
Bet they do.
they're Kansas City all the way. They grew up in that area. So it's like
Yeah.
they were watching
Oh
the
yeah,
Chiefs from
Missouri,
when they were younger.
Kansas. Yeah.
The last time they won a Super Bowl, they were saying like, or the first time they won it in a long time. I remember them saying like, man, the last time they won the Super Bowl, I was watching this with my parents as like little kids. And I was like, that's insane, to
Yeah.
think like you've been a fan all the time and then they win
Yeah.
again. You're like, brings you right back to like, it was like a Ratatouille
Yeah.
moment. Like,
That's kind of cool.
but I think for the sake of family, probably the Chiefs.
Chiefs.
you know?
Okay. There's
Chiefs.
this idiom or this idea that the NFL is scripted, and the NFL script in itself has been predicted before, and that
Mhm.
there's going to be a definitive score. I think some individuals have said 24-17 Chiefs, and that after the game,
Mhm.
Travis Kelce is going to propose to Taylor Swift. That's kind of a general consensus on the interwebs, to bring it all together.
Interesting.
Which I mean,
Yeah.
it could be the case. I think football is such a monolithic thing in American team sports, and it I mean, so much so that we have a day dedicated to it that you can literally have parties for, much like you would for the Grammys, which we'll get back to. But it is interesting that like all of these worlds are colliding, right? The music world is colliding with the sports world into like this huge big amalgamation of like entertainment news. It's interesting, and I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how that plays out. But back to the Grammys, Taylor Swift won, obviously. And you were saying?
Yeah. Oh wait, real quick with the football thing. It is fun to put on your little conspiracy hat and be like, there's a lot of money to be had for the Chiefs winning and Taylor Swift being
Oh yeah.
so involved with the
Yep.
Chiefs and all. You know what I mean? Like, if there was ever a time to kind of cook the books,
Yep.
now would be
That would
a
be a good
opportune
time,
moment.
dude.
But I'm if that happens, if the score is exactly that, and they propose or whatever, I'd still really not care
Yeah,
that much.
agree. Agree.
Um, so
It's
it's fine.
entertaining, but
Um,
that's why it's called entertainment.
yeah, and I'm all about, man. I work that day, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but when I'm not working, I'm all about the food. I go hang out with my
Yep.
friends, and I eat the food, and I talk story. We're drinking, we're hanging out, watch the
What kind of food
commercials.
are you guys eating?
Some of which are
Is it
funny.
just like commercials are pretty funny, but the food at this situation?
Commercials can be pretty funny. Depending where we're at, if we're like at a not my family's, we'll do like
Mm,
kind of
mm.
barbecue, like hot dogs,
Pigs in a burger. Yeah,
hamburger,
yeah, yeah. Reggae.
chips,
Yeah.
some kind of like delicious beverages of some sort. Um, and then if we're at my mom's or another family member or something, we'll probably do like um, poke.
Oh yeah, the
I know she's done like the
sashims.
what do they call them? Like poke chokes, like you do the fried wonton, and you cut up like
Oh
avocado
shit.
and put ahi on it and like onion, like raw onion,
Yeah, yeah,
yellow
yeah, yeah.
onion or whatever, or white onion, and then you put like
Oh, I'm
furikake on
getting
that thing, and you're
hungry right
like,
now for that.
dude, that thing is
Oh wait.
freaking
Super ono,
ridiculous.
eh?
It's so damn good. And that's just like one of the things you eat. Like I'm eating good at my mom's.
Yeah.
Like,
Drinking
like
Bud
yeah, I'll
Light.
be there. Um, oh, for sure,
Duh,
dude.
dude. Get
No,
her done.
yeah, I don't really drink much, but it's got to be a bud.
Um,
But anyway, what do you eat on Super Bowl? Like, because I know you got your Hawaii roots. Does that carry over to Super Bowl celebrations? If you are partaking, because
uh,
I know you're not really like super
not
huge on the
necessarily. I haven't watched the
whatever.
Super Bowl like with intent in a very long time. Just ever since I've gotten
Mm-hmm.
into association football or like soccer. Um,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know. I've disassociated a lot from some of the sports I've played previously. Like I barely watch lacrosse, or still look into it. I used to make lists of lacrosse players I liked and football players I liked at different positions and like rank them and like
You made a lot of
yeah, I made a
lists
lot of
for
lists
sure.
as you know. And I just it
What about World Cup though? If you're watching the World Cup, what
oh
are you eating?
World Cup,
Mm-hmm.
anything balls,
What's the
takoyaki,
layout?
fish balls,
Nice,
maybe wontons, dim
nice.
sums. I don't know.
Ball
It
forms.
just kind of depends. I want to say comfort food wise, I'm always gonna go back to like
You spray paint and all it look like soccer
duh.
balls.
I mean, just black
Nice.
spray paint and silver spray paint. You know the things.
You don't
Yeah.
even know what treat is
Nope.
what.
It
You
just
just
if it
like
looks like a soccer
you
ball, it goes
just
in my
eat it. You're
mouth.
like, oh yeah, it's takoyaki.
Did we
Nice,
I
love it.
think we there was a Paramount commercial where
Mm-hmm.
John Picard from Star Trek threw Hey Arnold's head across the way, and there were I think Creed was singing in that commercial. I think we sent it to each other on Instagram if you recall.
When was
It
this
was recent,
recent?
and
He threw Hey Arnold's head. Was it
it
creepy?
wasn't creepy. It was kind of funny. Appa-
Was his body
yep, his
attached?
body was attached.
Okay.
And you had a bunch of you have like Reno 911 in there, and some other people that were on the Paramount Plus situation,
Oh, cool.
and
Okay.
I believe Frank from Geek Freaks was like, "Oh, should there be a category for best commercial in like the Emmys?" Um, and then I thought about it a little bit, and then I posited another question: is should there be
Mm-hmm.
a completely separate award show for short form video entertainment? So whether that be like YouTube or podcasting or commercials, because of how much that
Mm.
matters, considering uh, millions of dollars that are made during Super Bowl commercials, because the Super Bowl is one of the most widely watched things. Obviously, not as much as the World Cup, because the World Cup is the entire world. But duh.
Duh.
But how can do you think that there's a space for that? And what are some examples of that make the case for it?
Oh man. I mean that. Yeah, that's a good question because over the years there have definitely been commercials, you know, and they appear on TV. You're watching in between shows that you like or whatever. Um, and I'm assuming certain commercials, the better ones get placed, or maybe they get put, they have more money to
Yeah.
spend when making it, but a lot of the better commercials are put into like primetime spots, a lot like
Yep.
television
Yep. Yep.
shows. Um, and there have definitely been ones that have stuck in your head over the years that you're like, that are still funny when you run them back, or there's certain commercials that, oh, that was kind of funny, and then I forget all about them, and there's certain ones that just stick with you. So I think those that could totally be
An award show.
an
Yeah.
option to, like, yeah, because people, as we learned from I know at one point we are talking about people who just create trailers for movies and how much of an
Oh
art that
yeah.
is. Like a good trailer or for a movie or a show can really set that movie or
Yep.
show up. Like if the trailer's bad and the show ends up being good, you're really hurting that,
Yeah.
like, that
I.e.
first eyes on the show.
Blair Witch. The Blair Witch Project. How they marketed that, first of its
Yeah,
kind,
yeah.
millions of dollars
Hmm.
on like a $20 budget. Um. Yeah.
That's a good example. Yeah, and then yeah, the way they shot it too. I mean, most people thought it was real for
Oh
a long
yeah.
time.
Wait,
So they
it's not
said like,
real?
no, it was just no, it
Oh,
is.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, don't
Definitely don't go into the
don't go in the
woods. Yeah.
woods.
Don't go to the woods.
Just don't go. I mean, yeah, don't go in
Yeah.
the
Who's
woods.
going to
Like,
the
unless you know
woods?
what you're
Yeah,
doing.
that's kind of.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
Kids,
know.
man,
It
kids
plays
and
back to
shows
it. Yeah,
go in
go
the
in the woods. They don't
woods,
watch
and then they're
movies.
like,
Like, what's going
"Hello,
on?
I'm lost." Yeah, what? Do you...
Look at this freestanding building without windows in the middle of the woods. Should we go into it?
And they
And they
definitely
definitely
do,
go into it. Like, what
dude.
the
Anytime
fuck
I
are we
see that in
doing?
shows, I'm like,
What are you
"What are
doing?
you doing?" You know what's funny though? When every time I see that in a movie, I'm like, "This is where I would survive." Like, I would just wouldn't go any
Yep.
further. Like, the movie for me ends here, and I'm going
Yeah.
back home, and I'd live. You know, like.
Yeah.
It is.
They
So,
should.
those are
Yeah.
another one of those things where they write it so you're like, okay, they need to go in to get to this next part, but I'm not believing that they're going in for this
Yeah.
reason. Like, it's dumb.
Oh, well, yeah. And
Yeah,
for
or
some
right
reason, you
sometimes.
were talking about that. It reminded me of the movie It Follows, which is it was a great
Oh, that's the
movie.
one where like it's like a parasitic type of creature thing that kind of like would just. Is that the one that go into people and then they would just follow you?
Oh no,
Is it the one?
I think you might
I'm
be
thinking of something
combining
else.
things. This is the one where you had intercourse with somebody, and then an entity would follow you and try to kill you, and in order to pass it on, you had to intercourse somebody else.
Oh yes.
So
In order to
it
pass it
was
on, you had
just
to
we lost
be intimate with
we
someone
lost it
else,
again. Oh,
and
hold
then
on.
that thing would follow them.
But I was talking about It Follows,
Hmm.
which something is literally following you. In order to have it not kill you, you have to intercourse somebody, and then it follows that person, and so you're
That's
trying to
right.
include as many people as possible.
I
Blah blah blah.
watched that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So that movie is good because yes, they're younger, they're making kind of silly decisions, but there's this entity, but they were making really good decisions as to how to defeat the thing, even though the thing was relentless. And I think with that kind of idea, that works, right? With certain things, you can definitely make it work.
Yeah, and that was good because it was an interesting take on a horror movie, especially in the fact that like the thing that's following you walks really slow.
Yep.
It's not running at you. It was very eerie, and you
Yeah.
could travel miles and whatnot, and then you could be
It
across the
would.
state or
Yep.
across the country, and then like you'd be good for a little bit, and eventually something follows you.
Yep.
Um, and it had to be living objects, people, right? You couldn't
Yeah.
just like do it with a tree and then
Yeah.
that's done.
It,
Like,
it would be interesting. Yeah. It's just like, I'm going to fuck this tree and then
if
it'll
I
kill this
really
tree.
just hollow it out right, I might be able to get this thing to follow this tree.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why global warming is happening, because It Follows is just fucking trees and then killing trees,
That's
and
probably what
it's
happened, dude.
not converting carbon
Someone
dioxide
fucked a
into
tree
oxygen.
and then
So,
yeah.
okay, so we've got some trailers: House of
Hmm.
Ninjas, Avatar: The Last Airbender, A Quiet Place, Day One. Out of the
Yeah.
three you watched, which one are you most excited for? Um, And I guess we can give a little bit of recap of each, but which one are you
Yeah.
most excited for? I can tell you what I'm
Um,
most excited for.
I could guess, but
Yup.
and I think I might be with you on that. This is like the first time where all three trailers look so good,
Real good.
in
They all
their
look real good.
own right. Like
Yes.
the day one movie. It's a movie for one thing, right? And it's like
Yeah.
it is interesting now that we know the universe of the Quiet Place. We get to see what happened on day one. The way it's shot and everything, like the budget's up, the budget's good, like everything looks good and creepy and scary.
Damn.
And then like this, it almost feels like a spin-off in a way, but like just
Yeah.
exactly what you want to see. Like the things landing and like, oh my god, it looks really good. I'm pumped for that, and I only just saw the trailer, so I'm pumped. Of course, Avatar. I'm actually pretty surprised at how good it looks.
Yep.
I always had like high hopes for it, but now seeing the trailer, I'm like, dude, everyone looks good. We were talking Sokka looks really good. Um,
Yes.
his the way he speaks and his cadence and everything, it feels like Sokka,
Yeah.
and I think that
Feels like
was like one
Sokka.
of the characters that everyone
Mm-hmm.
was most
Mm-hmm.
worried about. Um, everyone looks good in that. CG looks great. Like flying
Yep.
Appa Bison, like
The
looks
fire, the way
amazing.
they're bending.
The
Yep.
fight, yeah, all that looks great. So that's great to be excited about. But
Yeah.
dude, fucking was it House of Ninjas? Is that what it is?
House of
Dude, that
Ninja
show was like.
looks
So
real
you wrote
good.
that in our thing, like, oh, check out this trailer. And like as I was watching this, I was like, this show has everything I want in a show right now.
Yeah, it fucking does.
Like, it's so. I'll let you explain this trailer, but
Yeah.
it is like it is good.
It's yeah.
It is good. Yeah,
It's
take
got
a whack at it. It's so good.
okay. So yes, to A Quiet Place Day One, you get to see all the monsters kind of coming down. You get to see like the chaos and kind of where John Krasinski kind of really dug in deep in terms of his directorial debut with A Quiet Place. So that's going to be really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And obviously, we've watched the Avatar: The Last Airbender, and if this does good, then potentially we could have an arc of Legend of Korra where we get to see some lava bending and metal bending, which we could
That would
definitely
be
do CG wise
sick.
now. That would be so sick. So those
Yeah.
two obviously high expectations. At the same point in time, it's going to add a lot to what we already know about it. But okay, let's get back to the real creme de la creme here. House of Ninjas. All right,
Oh
it looks
boy.
like all of the K movie, the Korean movies that we've seen that have won awards like Parasite, etc. It has that sort of vibe in terms of its
Mm-hmm.
cinematography, but it's Japanese, which we're all
Yeah.
three of us are Japanese.
Yeah.
It has to
Mostly
do with
Korean, but
ninjas. So essentially, the plot is the world in itself, or this particular world. There's a cabal happening, and there's a clan that's kind of taking over and controlling things from behind the scenes. And the original protectors of this world, this family of ninjas, have they want to be normal family, but they are like the elitist of elitist ninjas. And they're from grandma all the way down to baby. They're all extremely good at what they do. It's so good that their regular daily tasks are done with the precision and skillfulness of a ninja. So, for example, there's a shot of an individual filling up a vending machine just by
that was
throwing all of
sick.
the things into the vending machine, and it's going in perfectly.
He's like
Um,
15 feet away, just not looking like shoot,
yeah,
shoot, shoot. Like
just
that was
right in
sick.
there.
Yeah.
And the action in itself obviously is going to have a lot of katana play, a lot of ninja-esque, in the shadows type situations, but behind it is a story and a mystery that from the trailer you already automatically are pulled in. You're like, well, why does
Mm-hmm.
this family of ninjas have to come back? Why is this new ninja clan trying to take over and cabal this world? How is this family, who is normal, who has a grandma in it, going to defeat a bunch of these young up and comers who are willing to murder and control for power, right? So it's super intriguing, much
Mm-hmm.
like the Netflix movie that's coming out, or the series coming out, Shogun. That's going to give you more of a feudal style of ancient Japan. This House of
Mm-hmm.
Ninjas is a little bit more a take on a modern ninja facilities without the gimmicky, what we would think of like as a ninja movie, like the GI Joe,
Yeah.
Snake Eyes type situation, or some of those other similar styles of ninja, like the original movie Ninja, which is like, I think, um, uh, uh, a Caucasian man who like went to Japan and became a ninja and is living in the city and then has to do ninja stuff for some ninja
Was that
reason.
Last Samurai?
Um,
No.
ooh, it could have been. It might have been Tom Cruise being a
It's
ninja.
always like you're gonna watch this thing that's very Japanese, and then it's like the lead is a white guy. Like, what?
Yes,
But don't
so
worry, everyone else
diverse.
is Japanese. Yeah.
But the one main
But
character
the
who has
one
all the
guy.
skills
Why
is
don't you all speak
Caucasian.
English?
I mean, I guess he's sort of an Asian.
Who?
He's
Tom Cruise?
Caucasian. Yeah.
I like it.
Ayo.
Hey,
But House of Ninjas is coming out February 22, I
so
believe.
fucking good. Yeah.
So we're definitely going to talk about in the reviews.
Oh
And
yeah.
speaking of reviews, Scott, we've got 2 reviews to go through. We got Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and then we've
Okay.
got Masters of the Air. So why don't we talk about Masters of the Air first, just because we have been talking about that. And Mr. and Mrs. Smith is relatively new to everybody. So um, Masters of the Air episode 3.
Yep.
Essentially, this is the one where they preface they're going to be flying down to Africa and bombing a ball bearing facility,
Factory.
factory, so that they it'll halt some production on the German side in that situation.
Yep.
Lots of action and flight. We get to see a lot more of what they're doing inside of the flying fortress, especially when they're coming under attack. One of the
Yeah.
biggest things, spoiler alert, that played
Spoilers.
through
Yep.
is what's his name? Barry Keoghan,
Barry. Yep.
Lieutenant Curtis Biddick. He's piloting a plane. It gets hit. It's not really the best situation because these planes are getting messed up, and he's trying to save the individuals in the plane by telling them to jump off, and he was going to try to keep it as steady as possible. And then cut to the plane crashes, and we see Barry's face kind of get engulfed a little bit, and everybody paused around the world who's watching this show and was like, "Did Barry just die in the 3rd episode?"
Yeah, it was very shocking and sudden, but like you said, like his face said it all.
Yeah,
The moment of like, oh, I'm not making out of this. Like,
yeah,
oh, dude. Of
yeah.
course, we all love that character. That actor is freaking amazing. I feel like
So
every
good.
movie he's in, he's like a different type of
Yeah.
person.
He's
Like
a Daniel
he's a
Day-Lewis
fucking
type.
chameleon. Yeah,
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 so good. I really loved his character, and especially the way in I feel like just the last episode he kind of gets out of a weird landing, and they're like, this guy. You feel like he always pulls through.
yeah.
Um, and very honorably, he didn't want to leave his fellow pilot behind. He could have got out,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Mm-hmm.
really thought he could have landed it. And then it's it was it was
It was
rough.
heart
And
wrenching.
yeah, like it was really sudden. You're like, oh no, like it's only, and then it made me think like, is there only 5 episodes? Because like then he died mid season. Like how many episodes we got? Like he seemed like a
Yeah,
main character.
yeah,
Very Game of Thronesy or something, like where you're
yeah.
like, don't get attached to anybody. Heavy episode. And well, what was interesting about this episode, there was like 3 different units, right, that were flying
Oh, yeah.
out, or I forget what they call it, but we'll just call them units.
Like,
Um,
yeah,
and the group of people that we are familiar with in the show that they keep showing, they were the crew that was set to fly through Germany onto Africa. It was already gonna be a crazy mission, but
yep.
don't worry, they're supposed to have 2 other units that come in and take fire off of them and stuff. But a fog rolls
Nope.
in, and these guys leave literally like 5 hours after they took off. So like they had no coverage, and like people were
Nope.
just getting picked off. Like it's like,
Yeah, it was a
oh, that was
bummer.
rough. Like
It was a
especially
bummer.
there was a lot of rough deaths in this. Even the I think one of them we're gonna see haunting one of the characters in future episodes. The
Mm-hmm.
boy, the young guy who got stuck in the what is it, the gunner under the plane,
Oh
and
yeah,
for whatever reason the door wouldn't open, and he was like, I can't, I gotta go, like I gotta go. And I mean, luckily so, right after he left, the plane decided
exploded.
not to work anymore. Yeah, just like
Yeah,
boom, like
it
so he would have
exploded.
for sure died if he just even tried 5 more seconds.
100%.
Um, but that's gonna haunt him, and we saw a little glimpse of that in the next episode. But
Yep,
oh man, this show is so good. Like
it's so good.
I'm looking, I really, yeah. Granted, yeah, it's filled with a lot of like tragedy and trauma
Yeah,
and stuff from the war.
Yeah. Which
But
I mean, you
the
could,
way it's
yeah, you.
shot and everything, like, yeah,
Oh yeah, so good.
oh,
It's very on brand for Band of Brothers in the Pacific, where they give you characters that you can kind of relate to
you
and
see
fall in love
brothers.
with. Oh yeah, Band of Brothers.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. So, Band of Brothers originally, I believe, was Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks worked together on that. Um,
Hmm.
and obviously, Tom Hanks has done a bunch of World War II movies.
Yep.
Most notably, Saving Private Ryan. He also did one recently during COVID called Greyhound, which, if you think about land, air, and sea, Band of Brothers being land, Masters of the Air being air, Greyhound is about a captain, Tom Hanks, who is captaining his first group of destroyers across the pond, to help these cargo ships bring cargo from America to the European side, and they're being chased by U-boats, essentially submarines. And if you're talking about the amount of action, Greyhound is a movie you should check out if you're into World War II and those types of the like. It has a very much Masters of the Air type feel. But in terms of
Ooh.
Masters of the Air,
Okay.
the way that it's filmed, the way that the characters are built up, the writing is just so good too. And
That's so good.
it is a take on what happened in World War II, and so the dialogue in itself can't necessarily be exact, right? It's
For sure.
based on a generality. There's some books written about it, which they do kind of base some of it on some books as well too. But the way that they build the characters and the way they shoot things, so you're seeing what they would be seeing in a way that you can relate to and understand, because unless you're in the
Hmm.
military, unless you've done these things, it's very hard for you to conceptualize, like, oh, what would it be like in the bottom of a flying fortress when you can't open it up and you know you're falling down. The gravity is being pulled from you, and you only have one person left to help you, and that person kind of has to save their own life, because it's either one person dies or two people die. And even though you want to live, there's a general understanding, but there's also the camaraderie. You don't want to let that person go, but you have to make that tough decision. And so you're there the entire time debating with yourself as the character, as you, would I do this, would I not do this? And then you see the
Hmm.
plane explode and you're like, oh well, fuck, right?
Yeah.
And then it just leads to another situation where you're like, what would I do, what would I do in this situation?
Yep.
And then what are these characters doing in this situation? I can't believe the character would do that. I can't believe that after all of that, they were able to not only make it to Africa, right?
Yeah.
But they were able to help who they could make it to Africa after being shot up by multiple different planes, explosions in the sky,
Hmm.
loss of pretty much all your friends. The majority of the battalion was gone. I think out of like 20 planes or something like that, only 7 were left, or
Yeah, it
something
was like
weird
a
like that.
crazy big number like that. And it
Oof.
was interesting to see the two leads, Caleb Turner and Austin Butler, how they're both starting to kind of they're showing how they're both dealing with
Yeah,
war differently now.
differently.
You know,
Yep.
one is trying to just like muscle through it, like, yeah, that's what we do, man. Like, that's just what it is, and we're lucky. We're gonna get out of this. Don't worry. And you see Austin Butler's character, Gale. He's feeling like more and more doubt. It seems
Yep.
he's confident in his abilities to get things done. You see in that episode where he's like, "This is what we're doing." Like, there's the co-pilot wants to bail, and he's like, "We're not like
Yeah.
basically like we're not fucking bailing. Like, if we die
Yeah.
here, we die here. Like, and I
Yeah.
need you to fucking
So
be
fucking
under my
boss.
command." I was
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, that was boss."
Whoa.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
but then he lands and he's like, "Dude, like this is just not what I thought it'd be." And his other guy trying to be like, it's just it's interesting. It seems like
Yeah.
they're distancing from each other a bit.
Yeah.
Um, it's just such good. Like I want to know more about these characters, and I want to
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's so good. I look forward to this show every week for sure. Um,
Yeah. So interesting, the
really good.
contrast too with how these individuals are handled. Obviously, it's a different time, and yes, it's just
Hmm.
a show that's about a time in the past. But
Right.
to have a view of that in comparison to what I guess our trials and tribulations of today are. I mean, we definitely don't have to be flying in planes fighting a nation that wants to rule the world, right? You could make the argument for smaller civil skirmishes between countries that are next to each other, but that aren't global. Like this has
Right.
the connotations of so much detriment if they do
Hmm.
not succeed. And even if they do fail, they're not really, or even if they do succeed, they're not really succeeding, right? They're losing friends, they're losing family, they're losing a part of themselves in the war. And to be able to view it, I think for me gives me obviously a gratitude for what we've accomplished then and what we can have now because of it, and also a general understanding of like we got it pretty good right now, right? Like
For sure.
we got pretty
Yeah,
good.
there's a lot going through like as I'm watching the show, and it might sound stupid to say, but like it's easy nowadays to like you see like, oh, this happened, this many people died, this, and like sometimes things are just with the news and everything's coming at us. Some things just feel like numbers on paper.
Yeah,
It's like it doesn't hit you like when you see things dramatized like this. You're like, dude, I forget. Like, yeah, America has like a giant force, whatever, land, sea, ground, land, sea, air. Um, but you forget like there's people manning those things, and like with every
yeah,
great victory, like there's a lot of people who die along the way.
yeah.
Some seems like for no good reason, really. Like you'd like to think everyone goes out heroically, but it's like sometimes just
No,
fucking
yeah,
unlucky
sometimes
shit happens,
yeah,
and you're like,
yep, yep,
this
yep.
guy trained this long and like did all this to like go out like that. You just like it's crazy to think about. And yeah, and it does remind me like we got it good. This was obviously during a time where like more people kind of had to show up and like
Yeah,
just fucking get it done,
yeah,
like
yeah. If you
whether they
don't
wanted
show
to or
up,
not.
yeah. Ooh,
Like,
man.
and we definitely live in a time now where we can choose to do that if we will.
Yeah,
And thankfully we have people like that in the world that still want to do that sort of stuff. And um but the fact that we got a choice
yeah,
is insane, right?
yeah,
If you were able to go back in time and talk to any of these people and be like, in the future this is what we got, whatever, they'd be like, what the fuck? Like, it's just, yeah, it's insane. But yeah, if you haven't checked the show out yet,
check
definitely
it
recommend it. It's on
out.
Apple,
Yeah.
coming out every Friday, I think. Is it Thursday or Friday?
I don't know. I feel
um
like it was like a Monday and it was on and it was new and I was like, oh, when did this come out? So it's
I
one
don't
of the
even know.
7 days. It comes out one of the seven
Check it
days each week.
weekly, guys.
Yeah,
New eps will
yeah,
be up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you to all of our veterans
Sorry we don't.
for serving. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But
We
definitely
don't
not.
know when
Yeah.
the show comes out, but it's on. It comes on one
Give me a
time a
second, I can
week.
look it up. But so could
Figure it
you,
out, all right?
right?
Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna look it up. Hold on a second.
It's
What day?
yeah. It's I also enjoy the fact that like
Fridays.
Fridays, the to be able to the reflection of it, like to let us remember and be grateful for it. It's also just super cool when like military, you could make the argument, pushes technology forward the most, and to see
For
like a
sure.
flying fortress back in that time where you had like 5 separate areas where they could put manned guns, where it could carry bombs, and they were outfitted to carry nuclear bombs, but they were flying at a lower altitude than Boeing's now passenger planes fly, and they have to travel. They traveled from Europe all the way to Africa. Like, what are we talking about on a
Yeah.
single tank? Like, what?
Yeah,
Like,
that is insane.
yeah,
There's a lot of things growing up, like just like, sheer ignorance. You hear about certain things, like a bomber. I'd be like, oh, okay, it's a bigger plane because it just holds a lot of bombs. So I just picture like two guys flying it, and then they
you're
just
like,
drop
yeah,
bombs.
dude.
But you're
Yep.
like, you see all the things going, and like everyone's got their own job. They're relying
Yeah.
on each other to do certain things,
Yup.
and I'm like, wow, there's a lot going on.
Team,
It's
dude.
like a
Teamwork.
flying apartment with like guns at every window, and like you got a navigator and stuff. Like it's pretty
Uh,
insane. Like you got the two pilots, and then you got a guy like just doing calculations and be like, this is where we should be right now.
yeah,
Like
dude.
it's it's
That's
freaking
stressful
nuts.
math. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
They
he's fucking
they do that
Wazing
same thing
before
in
Waze back
Greyhound.
there. It's
Yeah, I
nuts.
know.
Was that?
No, I was saying
Oh, in
in
Greyhound.
Greyhound, they were doing similar things. They were making calculations with like protractors and shit as submarines are like blipping on the
Bananas.
radar. Like I'm like
You
I
are
don't know, dude.
the pressure.
I feel like we're
That's a
not good at
different type
math
of person.
anymore. If you can't do
I
math
know
good
I'm
when
not.
someone's trying to kill you, like yeah, I'm not that good at math.
Somebody just yell at me like simple addition problems during a gunfight, and I would not be able to answer those
You're
things.
like,
Two
fuck,
plus
eight
two.
plus two.
Like,
You're like, oh, fuck.
bullets. Yeah, it would just be yeah. And I mean, when you could argue that they go through training for this, but like really, like you can't prepare for what
Yeah.
you end up encountering. Like it's
There's
not
just
that I'm
no
talking
way.
like I've seen it, but this is
Yeah.
based on what I've seen in the show. But yeah, there's just no way.
There's just no way, dude. There's just no
Yeah,
way. Okay, so
such a good show.
yeah, such a great show to a show that I think was surprising. I think we were all kind of skeptical about it at first,
Yeah.
but the show
Mm-hmm.
surprised me. Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon with Donald
Yep.
Glover and Maya Erskine as John and Jane. Um, I think the first thing that I want to mention is that Donald Glover and Maya Erskine had their own shows. Maya had Pen 15, Donald Glover had Atlanta, and
Mm-hmm.
that comedy style and that almost the shots and the cinematography are very similar, and they're like an amalgamation of each. I don't know that this
Mm-hmm.
show would be as good as it is without their comedy and their acting ability. Um,
Yeah.
Obviously their
Yeah.
credentials, and I also don't think it would be as intriguing as to find out that John and Jane Smith, the Mr. and Mrs. Smith, are essentially um, small sects, sex. I keep
Mm-hmm.
saying sex, sects. Are you hearing
Yeah.
the T when I'm saying it?
I am. You're
Oh,
enunciating it well.
sects. They're
Sects.
sects. There's
Sects.
multiple John and Jane Smiths essentially. So there's a world of
Yeah.
John and Jane Smith, and
So
you
much
can
sex out
even
there.
so much sex, dude. They are having sex. There wasn't any boobs, but that's fine. But because of this, that you find out there are multiple couples that are John and Jane Smith that are secret
Yeah.
agents that are working together. It allows us to still have um, Brad Pitt, and
See, I'm not
Angelina
the only one that
Jolie.
does this shit.
I know, who the fuck is that? Um, Angelina
They come
Jolie
to
and
you
Brad
so
Pitt.
easily too. These wrong
Yeah, I
names.
know.
Yeah.
Angelina Smith and
Uh-huh.
Brad Pitt Smith. They can exist in this realm because there's multiples of them. That was one of the most intriguing things
Mm-hmm.
that you can have out of it. And
Yeah.
episode 1, 2, and 3, or we've watched up to episode 1, 2, and 3, I believe.
Yep.
And it's the show in itself gives you enough to be like, oh, okay, this is interesting, and enough to be like, I'll watch the second episode.
Yeah.
Not necessarily binge it, but like it gives you just enough to be like, oh, I'll watch the next episode. And it does that very consistently. And they start bringing in characters like Ron Perlman is in it, Paul Dano is in it, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Paulson is in it. And you can kind of, you'll be like, oh, okay, there's a little bit more, there's a little bit more, there's a little bit more.
Yeah.
From what
And they
you've
got small
seen
things
so
like I was
far.
saying later on. Dave Fatale's in it.
Oh yeah, David
I
Tell,
ended
yep.
up watching all of it. But I
Oh
do know what you
dang.
mean. Like it was well, first thing I didn't know how far you watched. I probably should just ask. And I was like, he might have saw
Yeah.
it all. I gotta watch all of
I
it.
kept it
So
going, but then
yeah.
I was like, oh.
I did find it enjoyable, and I agree with you with how it was paced. Um, it wasn't. It didn't feel like a typical show that's trying to hook you, like
Yeah, no.
a super crazy cliffhanger at the end. It's leading
Yeah.
up to a climax. I gotta know what happens. Like it's a very it's written by the creators of Donald Glover and Francesca Sloan.
Yeah. Yeah.
They also did Atlanta. It feels very much that like it's shot
Yep.
really well.
So good.
The dialogue is it's good and it's very their style. The humor is like dry, but there's also some physical comedy in it because like Donald
It's
Glover has
so
his own
funny.
weird like way of
Yeah.
being physical. Like he does things with his shoulders and stuff. And
Yeah.
then
His eyes
Maya,
and his head. Yeah.
yeah, he does his eyes in his head and stuff. And then Maya does from Pen 13, obviously, like she doesn't mind like looking really silly.
Yeah.
Um, sometimes like a lot of times her hair's in her face or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
But then there's times where they can clean up really well, so
Yeah.
it works for this, and it's
Their
a more
chemistry is
believable.
fucking perfect.
Their chemistry is really good.
So good.
And it does keep you engaged. Like you're like, oh, I kind of want to see where this relationship's going. It's a more realistic approach to this, and I get it too. Like the movie we saw, they were trying to sum up this whole season basically in a movie, which they did a
Yeah.
good job of, and they're action stars, so like it fit that exactly.
Makes
But
sense.
This they got to take their time with it, build the relationship, and see how the relationship kind of grows and like gets stronger and weaker as like they do missions together and whatnot, while slowly telling you about other Smiths and who's like there's that mystery like who's Hi is this person that's texting both of them that got them the job or what, basically they think they work for the CIA, like it's like a
Maybe.
lot of like it's kind of crazy that they're so undercover and so top secret. There's a lot of it they just kind of buy into without knowing
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
There's just directions on a phone telling where to go, and they're like, "Go kill this guy." All right, and they do it, and then like their first mission in particular, that's when you're kind of like, okay, I don't know how legit this is. They're going a little bit of spoiler at the end. The whole mission was like get a package, intercept the package, deliver the package somewhere, and then they had to find this lady who eventually picked up a box. They figured out a way to get the box from this lady, and then the delivery coordinates were like this house. It's like
Yeah. It's
filled
having
with
a
like
house
rich
party.
people, whatnot. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't know who's there, whatnot. They drop it off, and they're like, "Oh, good, you're here." They open the box, and it's a cake.
It's a
And then
cake.
she's like, "Oh, it's a little damaged, but like, hopefully I can get part of a refund. I don't think it's you guys though; it'll be the company." But yeah, so you guys want to stay, whatever. And they're both like, "What the fuck did we just do? Like, we for a cake? Like,
Yeah. Like, what the
what?"
fuck?
And then you're thinking it's kind of a comedy, so you're like, okay, like maybe the first mission is literally like, "Can you deliver a cake?" Um, and see how competent you guys are, or whatever. But then shortly after they leave that house, thankfully no one had to use the bathroom or they wanted that water or whatever the fuck. The
Kaboom.
house fucking explodes because that cake was a bomb, and you're like, holy fuck, you're in it. So they did a good job of like, I guess at the end of especially the first episode, escalating to like, I'm intrigued. Um,
Yeah.
and then the pacing as well after that. Um, I recommend the show. I think it's overall good. I enjoyed it all the way up to the end. There was um there was an introduction. I don't know if did you get to meet any of the other Mr. Mrs. Smiths yet?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay,
That
so
was
there's an introduction to
yeah.
them. That's Parker
Uh,
Posey and what's that guy? Wagner
Wagner
Mora.
Mora.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that, and that interaction was like interesting because when we see the first episode, we get introduced to one of the other Johns and Janes, Eliza
Which is a
Gonzalez and
Skarsgård.
Alexander Skarsgård,
Yeah.
and they get murdered, and then you hear that this John and Jane, Parker and Wagner, had to kill another Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And so because we've seen that and Donald and Maya haven't, we're like, oh shit, like what are they doing here? And then
Yeah.
they invite Donald and Maya to do a high risk mission and
Yeah.
then just have them go on this mission by themselves. Cut to the end of the mission where Donald and Maya are just covered in blood and just like I'm over it. And the way that Donald is talking to
That was very much their
Wagner, it
comedy. Yeah.
was so
No,
funny,
yeah,
so funny.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Thanks. Just cover, and the guy's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should give you all the money."
Yeah.
And like even
And it
the
was only like,
resistance of she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, I think you should." And like, "Yeah, you should." And they're just like, "Yeah, cool, right on,
and I think it
thanks."
was
Like
only $250,000, and they essentially had to murder like 8 people.
at first,
So
first they just told him it's like drop off the package, and then they had to like fight their way out through machetes. And like the cop,
yeah,
the chopper guy was like, "Oh, it's a crazy airspace. I'm gonna drop you here off here. I'll be back in 30 minutes." So they had to like
yeah. Like what
figure out
navigate with a GPS? Yeah. There's some
bananas.
spots where it's like you don't know the logistics, but you just go along with it, and it works. It works for this
Hmm.
show
Yeah,
because you're more so seeing the dynamic between Donald and Maya blossom because there's a little bit of a they are together, they are partners, but they are now romantically involved, and Donald has a general idea of what he wants, and Maya has a general idea of what she wants, and that conflicts, and you're seeing them kind of have to work through this relationship and partnership, not
hmm
knowing that if they break it up or if they defect, it's pretty much they're dooming themselves. They don't necessarily know that, I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
um
I know at the
and
dinner when they meet. It's a little bit of a spoiler. I guess
uh,
he kind of in the first episode they agreed like, hey, let's just like we're gonna agree to whatever money we want to make. Like whether you want to make more money than me, we're gonna reach that, and then we're gonna like both agree to end this?" Like, yeah, and they shook on it, and then they kind of like said it to the new couple, and they're like laughing, like, "That's a good one." Like, leave, like you could leave, and they're like, "Yeah," like
Oh.
they're both like, "Fuck," like,
Oh
what
yeah.
did we sign up for? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was crazy. The
Yeah.
another thing, real quick, was like the things they have to do in the missions. Some of the stuff they're like, retrieve the thing, make sure no one sees, and they're just kind of giving instructions, and then they're just like winging it. Like they're all just
Yeah.
winging it. And I'm like, is that how spies are? They're just like, you either figure it out or
Yeah.
you die. Like,
We also don't
like
have context of their past either, so it's kind of
that's
hard to
true. Yeah,
believe, but you believe it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because then they're like thinking, like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I got an idea. And then they're like, we got seconds. Like, it's just they're always under the gun, whether like
Yeah.
figuratively or literally. Like, it's just crazy. They just got to figure it out, and they gotta succeed. Um, really
What
interesting
was that?
show.
That one mission where they encountered John Turturro,
Hmm.
the rich billionaire, and they have to inject a true serum into him, but they can only do one true serum,
Yeah,
and they lure him into a room because one of theirs idea worked, and then they kind of like had to improv on that idea, and they were all in this room together by themselves, and John Turturro was like, okay, now get on your knees and act like a dog. And now, and, and I was like, what the fuck? And there's like, okay, now kiss. And in that moment I was
like
like, I thought
dogs.
they were gonna stop and like say like, oh, you want us to kiss like a dog or like human beings, because dogs don't really kiss, right? And they start like kissing each other on all fours, and like it got fucking super weird. And then happenstance they both stabbed him at the same time with two of the things, and they ended up
Yeah,
failing that mission ultimately. And we find out that they only have 3 strikes, but this kind of set off their romance because at the end of this episode they had coitus.
yeah,
um but that's the kind of like interesting takes on spy. It's definitely spy. It's not typical spy stuff. At the same point in time, the comedy in itself is very Donald and Maya, dark but funny. Like when they were trying to break John's arms, and Donald goes into the gagging reflex, and then that whole scene was just very awkwardly hilarious as well too.
yeah. Even
Um,
the dog licking part, like the way that Totoro's like, he's getting down. He's like, yeah, like your dogs, and he's like so into it. I always find it funny when like really dramatic actors can do comedy, but be the
yeah,
straight man,
so
and
funny.
like be like the absurd in like a real world or whatever. Like, I thought, yeah, it was so well written, that scene, because you could feel the awkwardness between them, because they know at some point they can just stick this guy, but they're like, how far do we go with this? And then he
Yeah.
starts coming in, and he's like, he's a dog, and you're like, what is happening? Um, and it was just the amount of, it's weird. I feel like if certain people aren't into this comedy, they might just be like, they don't even
What is
know, like,
happening?
what is happening.
Yeah.
But we know it's like, okay, this is funny, because
Yeah.
it's so weird. It's funny.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of that in this. I feel like most of the comedy is just them like being like serious faces and just
For sure.
saying things in deadpan. Um, but they do a really good job with it. And like, yeah, the guest appearances throughout is great.
Perfect.
I wonder
Yeah.
how I often think like, oh, I wonder how they got this person, like what that conversation was like. Did they see him at a party and was like, hey, we're doing this thing, or blah blah blah, or I don't know. But it is really good. I would recommend finishing it. I
For
really
sure.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Um,
You think
and it was surprising. What was that?
it was surprising? What?
No, it was I was surprised at how much I liked it. Like,
Oh,
when I
no, yeah.
first heard it announced, I was just like intrigued. I was like, oh, okay, I like these people, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith is not really a property or like thing that I was thinking about, like ever
Yeah.
making a comeback or whatnot. But it was good. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the costume design is real good too.
Hmm.
Maya and Donald look fly all the time. Even that one joke where Maya was like, "Oh, you dated that girl and you didn't know she didn't have a hand," and
So
like that,
funny.
like I, so good.
Dude, I literally rewound. I don't know if you did. I
I did.
rewound that part, and I was
Yeah,
like looking, and they purposely didn't really show her hand, and then when they
yeah.
did, it was wrapped in a thing.
I
And it was
know.
funny that you're thinking like this. Either he's so into himself he never knew this person didn't have a hand, or
Yeah.
she does have a hand, and he's just like still so into himself he can't even remember she had a hand. Like
Yeah.
that was fucking
It was
funny.
greatly written, which makes me think, you could make the argument that anything Donald Glover touches could be gold. He could be a Midas like person.
Yeah, I think he's really good at
Yeah.
I think the good thing is like he's able to write this for himself.
Yeah.
He knows where he shines and what is
For
like.
sure. Yeah.
He's
He knows
like
his
I guess in
strengths.
that same like a Seth Rogen, a Adam Sandler, whatever. Like they write good shit for them. Like no
Yep.
one else does it like them.
Nope.
Um, and I think Donald Glover for sure falls into that category.
Yeah, he's
Um,
got range too. He can be funny, he can be dramatic.
yeah, he can be, and they're both really like. There's scenes in this show where they're like, just like tears are coming down their face and stuff, and I'm like, man, how the fuck did they
Fuck. So
like? They're
good.
able to just tap into stuff. And going back to touching on like how fly you said, it's funny you say that because there's a I don't know if you got to the episode where they were skiing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. He
And then
talks
he was
about,
like,
damn it, fashion.
he, because they were riding the lift, and he's like, man, I sure hope we don't have to ski coming down this thing because I can't
Because he
do it.
doesn't
And
know how
she's
to
like,
fucking
what? But
ski.
you bought all the ski stuff, and he's like, yeah, because I look fucking fly in it. Like he knows. Yeah. And then later he's like, damn, this red jacket. Why I gotta look so good?
I know.
Because he couldn't hide. He
Holy
looks like
shit.
red in the
Yeah.
snow.
Yeah, red and the white
Yeah, it
snow.
was.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
great.
so is it I'll finish it, but like at the end of episode 8, does
Hmm.
does it allow itself to potentially have a continuation, a season 2, whether that's with Donald Glover and Maya or without? Does it allow for that, and do you think it deserves that?
You know what? I think they did a really smart thing with the ending, and without giving anything away. I feel like it was done in a way where it could go on to do more things, but also it could have ended. It could just end there.
Mm.
Like it does one of those things where like the ending almost feels kind of there's certain things that will leave you like it's kind of up to your imagination what you think might happen after this
Mhm,
sort of
mhm.
situation, and it kind of ends like that. But it could very well lead to a second season, or it could end there. So, um, I thought it was done really well. I was trying to think back on the episode, and I'm like playing in my head, and like if they chose this choice to end it this way or whatever, would I have liked it more? And I think I liked it the way they did it.
Okay, that's what's
Yeah.
up.
Hmm.
You don't really,
So
sometimes series don't know how to end good.
exactly, I was thinking that like sometimes like especially
Yeah.
like let's just for instance say like a sci-fi something, and then like they never show the creature, and you're like, oh man, sometimes the anticipation is better than the you
Showing the
seeing the
creature all the
creature.
time.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes if they just never show the creature, and you're like, whoa, like that might have been for the best. Like it leaves it in
Yeah.
a way where you're like, you're still kind of imagining, but it still felt like there was a resolution to it. So they didn't like it felt like one of those they could have very well like the ending could have just went to shit. But I like the way they ended it.
That's good.
Personally.
That's exciting. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Okay.
It was good. It was like a nice surprise this show.
Yeah,
Definitely
dude.
recommend
Mr.
it.
and
And
Mrs.
most
Smith.
people have Amazon, so
Yeah.
check it out.
I mean, if you don't, you're paying way too much for things that aren't made quality. I feel like, in terms of the
Yeah.
products
Or
that
you
are
just
sold
never
on that
use
platform. Yeah.
or
I
you
guess,
know
I mean,
someone.
yeah, you might know somebody who can use there, but then you have to put in your credit card information, and then now they have your credit card information. And do
They
you
got all
trust that
you gotta
person
trust
to
this
not
person,
use your
yeah.
credit card? Yeah, it's gonna be real
It's a
tough,
whole
dude.
thing,
Don't
man.
let people just have your CC, dude. Um,
Yeah.
but we've got through the news, the reviews, and some of the trailers that we've been looking forward to. And if you are looking
Hmm.
forward to those things, then check them out. Um, but Scott, without further ado, I think we've done the things that the joystick could do this evening.
Hmm.
And again, listeners, thank you for sticking it with us and hanging out. Um, if you like what you hear, again, please like and subscribe, share it with people. Let us just continue to be able to chat and have fun on here. But
Yeah.
Scott, do you have anything to say to the viewership before we bounce out?
No, we appreciate you, and hopefully you got some joy out of this.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Thanks for sticking it with
Sticking
us.
it with us.
The Joystick Show. The Joystick Show.